For this weekly wash, going to be focused on foil tuning, going to have a bit of a talk about different ways which you can tweak your equipment to make it feel a little bit different or get the best out of it in different conditions. But coming to you after a pretty special week down here in the West Country, winds were reversed, everything came from the east for a few days. Love it when it's easterly, different spots open up, different runs, different journeys. Had some pretty sick downwinders, some sessions with a really good crew. So hope everybody got on the water, had a really good time. Powerwing's been the talk of town here. When it turns to downwind conditions, that cheat code that you can pop it up, pack it away, it's really opening doors to what's possible. So give us a shout if you want more info on that. Also a pretty special tow forecast coming up here in the West Country, some pumping swell about to drive through off the back of Storm Erin, which is over the other side of the Atlantic, looking at 20 seconds, 3.5 meters pushing through. So there's going to be some massive swell Tuesday in particular, but that's going to carry on through the rest of the week. There's really good swell pumping every single day. Some of the days have got wind, some don't. That keeps changing its mind. For sure there's going to be energy in the ocean. Which sport's the tough one? At the moment, it's looking like tow is on the cards. I'm planning to be in the water every day towing from early till late. So if you're interested in getting down, towing into some rolling waves into the river mouth or some more critical waves, which are really punchy, give us a shout, get booked into a slot and can get you on the water. But for this week, instead, going to be having a look at some equipment tuning, look at foil tuning. Getting the best out of your equipment is really important, and sometimes it's hard to know where to start. There's a lot of things people talk about on how you can tune your equipment, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. So going to have a look at 3 key ways that you can adjust your foil setup to change the feel of it for your personal preference and your development, but also for different conditions. So 3 key ways. First, most obvious way which we can tune our equipment or our foil setup in our board is to look at its position in the mast track, which we'll look at here. Now I've got 3 setups here, which I'm going to rattle through. Whether it's prone, whether it's wing, whether it's downwind, whether it's tow, bunch of different sports, kite foiling. It's the same principles for each of them. What we're looking at is the angles of the foil and its position in the water. So to look at the track, if we're looking down here, all boards generally, the majority of boards generally have a track, which allows us to sit the mast further forwards or backwards. A lot of people play around with this when they get their gear. Generally, when you take lessons, you're advised that the further back it is, the less lift you've got. The further forwards, the more lift you've got. So with that basic principle, we can change our position here. Now, in principles, if you're not using foot straps, you're able to position yourself walking forwards or backwards on the board, so it doesn't matter too much. As soon as you start using foot straps, it's really critical that your mast is in exactly the right position in relation to particularly your back foot strap. So you're going to adjust this. But even when you're not using foot straps, the balance of the board is really affected by where you sit it on this track. So as well as creating less lift here, you're going to offset the balance to be driven from the back, which is going to mean you're going to lose a little bit of front foot pressure. It's going to be dropping down against you, but you're going to gain a little bit of rigidity in its yaw because you're right near the tail of the board. It's got less counterbalance. As we slide it forward, it's going to feel a lot looser through its yaw, and as well as you're going to get a bit more front foot pressure. So with this in mind, you can adjust how you want it to feel. If you want more front foot pressure, slide it forwards. But it's also a session saver because when you get out there and if you've got too much lift, you can nudge it back, you can nudge it forwards to get more lift. Or with your personal preference, if you like it loose, a more central forward position is going to loosen up the yaw. If you want it back, then that's going to make it stiffer on that yaw here. Good tool to really help with adjusting that is these hydrofoil wing screws. With these guys, it's a toolless system. You can tighten it up and then hit the water. When you're out there, if you feel like it's in the wrong position, you can change it again. So a good tool when you get different kit and you want to mix it up, but also a great tool to just run as the daily because different conditions, you might need to tweak it just a little bit. So that's your first most obvious way of changing things. The next possibly more complicated way, which some brands encourage you to do, some brands don't let you do, is to adjust the angle of our tail. So shimming the tail here. The Armstrong in particular, they sell all of their kits with a shim kit in there. Other brands, you can shim them, you can get 3D prints of the shims. What we're doing at the back on the tail here is effectively adjusting its angle in relation to the front wing. So a bit of basic understanding of how it works is our front foil is lifting up. That's the driving force that's lifting up against our front feet, lifting the whole board up and holding our weight. The back, the stabilizer or the rear wing, that's driving down. So that counterlever effect pushes down on the back, which helps the front to push up. Now, the more drive and the more lift downwards that rear stabilizer is driving against the front, the more lift it's going to create, but the more drag it's going to create, which is going to slow it down. So by adjusting this here, we can change our drag and we can change our lift characteristics, which again changes the pressure in our feet. It will change how the front foil behaves at its top and its bottom end, and it will change how, again, loose that foil turns. So important when you start playing with this to bear in mind, is your stabilizer mounted on the bottom like an Armstrong, or is it mounted on the top of the fuselage like an Axis? And that will determine whether you're putting in positive or negative shims. And what we mean by that is if our front foil's lifting up and our back foil is driving down, I'd consider that a positive shim would be increasing that angle, so it's driving downwards harder, which is pushing it up. So if we put in a positive shim and we drive it down harder, what that's going to do is it's going to lift the front more, it's going to increase its bottom end, it's going to grip the back, so it's going to feel a little bit more rigid. But what it's going to do is it's going to create more drag and it's going to slow the foil set down. If we flatten it, so we put in a negative shim, what that's going to do is it's going to decrease what the stabilizer is doing here in relation to the front, which is going to make the whole system run a little bit faster, but it's going to run a little bit looser. It's going to be a little bit more squirrely on the back end. If we totally flatten out, it's going to be doing very little for us. So with this in mind, by having shims in your quiver and understanding what they do, you're able to tweak your setup depending on the conditions. So if you've only got a limited setup, and let's say it's a higher wind day, you could flatten that stabilizer just to take out some lift in it. If it's, increase the lift by putting a positive angle in it. If it's a higher wind day, then flatten it out, because you're then going to not need the lift and it will drive a little bit faster. You'll see a lot of guys talking about shimming if it's really big conditions. So looking at the forecast for the coming week, big pumping swell, possibly your smallest front foil with your smallest rear foil is still going to feel a little bit too lifty. So by sliding in a negative shim, by flattening it out, you're going to maybe get a little bit more range out of how that foil behaves. Don't be shy to do that. You can do it on the water, but you've got to be careful not to lose your bolts while you're out there. You can take a little tool with you, take your shims and you can slide it in. Or it's the sort of thing which you'll just want to play with on a day when you're tweaking your kit, just to get to know what that's all about. So look at your shimming of the tail. And your last option is to shim the mast. And this is something not a lot of people play with. So on your mast here, it's mounted in the track. Whichever board you've bought has generally got, most boards, the majority, of flat angle at the back, or sometimes they've got a built-in shim to adjust the angle, to give it a bit of a kick. Now what we're talking about here, what I'm talking about is the angle of which our mast connects onto the board. So the rake which it comes off, or this angle here. So generally speaking, for the majority of boards with foils, it comes out at around about 90 degrees. But if we get ourselves a shim, this is a 1 degree shim, so it's got an angle in here. We can slide it in the front, or we can slide it in the back. So this 1 degree shift is going to change the angle of which it comes out. Now to explain what that's doing, I'm going to flip the board over. If we change the angle of which the foil's sitting underneath, we're changing the angle of which our board is sitting in relation to it. So when we're getting going, whether it's winging, whether it's paddling up, whether it's prone, if we've got everything completely neutral, we've got the feeling of which it gives us. We're used to that. If we slide a shim in the front, what that's going to do is it's going to separate the angle. It's going to put a positive angle between the two. So effectively, before you've taken off and the board is flat, that's going to mean your foil is diving down at a negative angle. So when you shim the front of the mast, what that's doing is it's going to mean you're going to create less lift at the beginning. It's going to maybe feel a little bit harder to get going. It's then going to buck a little bit faster as it suddenly does get lift, because what then happens as you take off and you find the right angle for the foil is the angle of the board is going to be driving more upwards. So it's going to be lifting the nose, it's going to be driving into your front foot much more. So you're going to get more front foot pressure. As opposed to, if we slide the shim in the back, we're closing our angle here, which means it will take off a little bit sooner, but once it's taken off, our nose is going to be pulled down towards the water, which means you're going to get a softer front foot pressure, not quite so much there. So this is a preference thing. Some people like it to be really loose on the front. Some people like it to be more driven through the front. Generally speaking, more front foot pressure gives you something to lean into. So if you're the kind of person which pumps around a lot, you might want that front foot pressure. If you're the sort of person that's winging and you're maybe going really fast and you're touching down quite a lot, you don't want to risk being nose down, sticking the nose in and catapulting off. A touchdown can be recovered if you're ever so slightly nose up. So this option to shim is something which a lot of people avoid, but actually depending on the setup that you've got, a few degrees of angle can really improve your lift or your touchdown capability. But at the cost of takeoff, it's a bit more explosive and a little bit more late in how it takes off. So it's quite a complicated subject in this shimming. It's definitely not something which is easy to grasp at the beginning, but a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of playing. What I'd advise is you go out there on a day when the conditions are average, they're what you're used to, and go out and just change one thing, feel a difference. If you slide it forwards or backwards, if you change the angle of the tail or slide in the mast shim, change one thing, try and stand in exactly the same position, same speed, feel what it does. And you'll notice you can really change your front foot and your back foot pressures. You can really change your speed of how it's running. And you can really change how much lift it's creating. And once you've got your head around it, these little differences which you can do can ultimately save a session or get you adapting to equipment really, really quickly. So quite complicated. If you want any more advice, any info on that, feel free to give a shout. I'm Chris at Poseidon. If you like this info which you're giving, if you think it's useful, feel free to give us a call. We've always got this demo gear available. We're a shop, welcome to hit us up, choose to buy from us, or visit us down in the West Country, especially this coming week where it's going to be firing.